Schools are at the front lines of the great cultural wars which are taking place in the world today, because everybody understands that what a child grows up with and is taught that this is the way that a person lives, that becomes their entire frame. Thank you so much for the invitation to come and participate and to share a few words here today at this very important conference, and in front of such an important audience, such a vital and illustrious audience, because the audience here today are at the front lines of the very future of our community. And what you are doing, and you know this better than me, and in fact, it doesn't need to be said, but even things which we take for granted do need to be said. And so if you will allow me to state the obvious is that you are on the front lines of our community, and the very future of our community depends on all of you. Because there is nothing more important than the Jewish education of the children of the South African Jewish community. And we know that from a statement in the Gemara where Chazal actually postulate, our sages postulate the eventuality of Mashiach coming, and is rebuilding the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, and needs the children of our schools in order to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, the temple. And the Gemara says, do you shut a school in order to release the children to go and build the infrastructure of the Beit HaMikdash? And says the Gemara that you don't stop the Tinoka Shel Beis Rabban, the children learning Torah in our schools, even for the sake of the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash. So what does that tell you? I mean, what can be more precious than the building of the Beit HaMikdash and the temple to bring the Shekhinah into the Jewish people? It is the ultimate fulfillment of so much of our vision and hope, and so much of the focus of Am Yisrael, and so much of the purpose of Am Yisrael. And yet, even more important than that, is children in school, learning Chumash, learning Mishnah, learning Torah, learning what it is to be a Jew, learning the purpose of life, learning what it is to serve Hashem, learning what it is to be part of Am Yisrael. And that Gemara says it all. It says that if we're talking about redemption, and if we're talking about the future, and talking about the building of the future, then it has to be in the Torah education of our children. And that's why I say that to be in this gathering with you is a privilege, because you are on the front lines, therefore, of the future of our community. And why is it? Why is it? Why is that so? Why is it so important that the teaching of children is the crux of everything? The best way I can think to explain it is, I remember, as a child, we always used to feel that as South Africans, and I know that we have a number of people who have journeyed from far in order to help our community and to participate in this symposium. And as children growing up, it stands in my mind that we always used to say there's no such thing as a South African accent. That somehow we felt that everybody else had an accent. The Americans have got an accent, the British, the Australians, but South Africans, we just talk plain. We felt we didn't. That was one of the things, South Africans, sometimes we have a bit of an inferiority complex, and we thought one of the things we didn't have was an accent. Everybody else was blessed with one. The French, Israelis, everyone's got an accent, but we don't. And of course, then you go out into the world, and people, the Americans especially, are fascinated by South African accents. And it turned out to be this tremendous advantage, the South African accent, and people appreciate it. And so what was the mistake? The mistake is this, that we believe that there is such a thing as being neutral, that there is such a thing as no accent. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as neutrality. You can't raise a child to be neutral. You can't raise a child and say, well, we're not going to give you a value system, and we're not going to give you a framework of thinking. There is no such thing. Every act of parenting, every act of teaching is actually constructing a worldview for how a child will look at the world, how a child will speak and think. We're constructing the accent with which they're going to speak, the accent of values, vision, perspective, and there is no neutral space. And one of the battlefronts in the world today goes to the heart of education of children. That's happening in the United States, where there is a massive cultural war going on. How do you educate children? What value system do you give? Gender identity. All of these things are at the front lines. Schools are at the front lines of the great cultural wars which are taking place in the world today, because everybody understands that what a child grows up with and is taught that this is the way that a person lives, that becomes their entire frame. It's something that I remember the late Rabbi Tanzer, late Rosh Hashiva of Yeshiva College, Zatzal. I remember going back to the time when even to the time when I got married, and talking to Rabbi Tanzer at the time, and he says the advice that he gives to all, it's going back a few years, the advice that he gives to a chassan and kala, to a couple who are getting married, he says, remember this, what a child grows up with in your home, they will consider to be normal and natural their whole life. And what they don't grow up with in your home, they will consider to be, that's not the norm. If a child grows up in your home, and in your home there is Shabbos and kashrus, and in your home there is generosity and kindness, and in your home there is sensitivity and compassion, then those are the values they are going to consider to be the norm. They grow up in your home and they don't hear Lashon Hara in your home, then when somebody does speak Lashon Hara, they're going to be shocked. Who speaks Lashon Hara? And if they grow up in your home and they understand that giving 10% and being generous is part of what it is to be a Jew, then when they encounter someone who doesn't give, they're going to be shocked. And if they grow up in your home and you keep Shabbos, then when they encounter someone who doesn't keep Shabbos, they're going to be surprised and shocked. And so the most sacred responsibility of a parent is to determine the value system, the accent of your child. What language are they going to speak? But not the language, it's the tone, it's the accent, it's the intonation. It is the entire cultural environment of the home. What you are determining is exactly what they're going to go out into the world with. And as educators in school, you are partners with parents. Because remember this, the foundation principle of Jewish education began as an outsourced service for the responsibility of parents. V'shinantam levanecha, the primary responsibility rests with parents. And then Yoshua ben Gamla, Zachu Latov, as the Gemara in Baba Batra says, may he be remembered for the good. He saw that if you just leave it in the hands of parents, then we cannot ensure that the quality and the standard of Jewish education will be maintained for everybody. There'll be some people whose parents are capable of it and some people whose parents are not. So he set up a nationwide schooling system for the first time in Jewish history, and arguably for the first time in human history, the establishment of a nationwide standardized schooling system, but it was there to fulfill the responsibilities of parents. The parent holds the original responsibility. The school is there on behalf of the parents, and that means that in the same way a parent is charged with this very onerous responsibility to set the parameters, the tone, the value system, the vision for a child, as schools, that is exactly what you're doing. And so I come back to the point that I started with. Who could be more important for the South African Jewish community than our Jewish day schools, our educators who are on the front lines of framing the value system of the children of our community? Not only the value system, but the skills required, the way to look at the world. When you teach a child Torah, you are teaching them to look at the world through the eyes of Hashem. That is what the Avos de Rabbi Nosson says on the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, that says the world stands on Torah learning. Says the Avos de Rabbi Nosson, what that means is that you train that through learning Torah we look at the world through the Da'at HaMakom, through the mind of Hashem. How does Hashem look at reality? He created this world, and then He gives us the Torah to show us how he looks at it. So if we want to raise children who are taught to think like a Jew, to look at the world through the prism of Torah values, of the divine values that have shaped our people since they were given to us at Har Sinai till this very generation, to look at life, the accent with which to speak, the prism, the glasses with which to look at the world, that is in your hands. And that requires both the values as well as the skills which you impart to them. So nothing could be more holy, nothing could be more important. And in that holy and important work, you work as partners with the parents of the children who are entrusted to you in your classrooms. And together, school and the parents of our children make the most important partnership for the future. And with this I will end. The Jewish future is dependent on the next generation. And every generation has to start from scratch because it has to be handed on. And every generation has to decide, we want to continue with Torah values. We want to continue with the legacy of our people. And if one generation decides we're not doing it, it stops right there. And so the most sacred task of a Jewish parent, of a teacher, of the Malamdim and the Malamdot, of the teachers of our schools, the most sacred task is to ensure that the next generation of Jews has the skills of what it is to be a Jew, to serve Hashem and to do the mitzvahs and to learn His Torah, but not only the skills, the love, the passion, the excitement, the desire to do so. The two together, the skills and the desire to do so, that is the guarantee of the Jewish future. And that's why what happens in the class is even more important than the building of the Beit HaMikdash, which brings the Shekhinah. Because if there isn't a new generation who wants to actually go to the Beit HaMikdash, then that building is going to stand empty. And that's why our sages said so many years ago that the Tinokot Shel Beit Rabban, the children of our schools, the Tinoka Shel Beit Rabban, they are the guarantee of the future. And those children, those students are in your hands. So may Hashem bless you and your families for your dedication to this holy task. May Hashem bless you with much success and bracha in everything that you do for the children of the community and for the children ultimately of Hashem. And in that merit, may your lives be filled with overflowing blessing. Yeshakach to all of you, and Yeshakach to Rav Ramon and his entire team for all of the wonderful support work that they are giving to you to enable you and to empower you to fulfill your tasks. God bless you and thank you for this opportunity.